տեսել կամ ծիծաղը սրի բայց իմ կամքը ամուր է քարիցել իր կողքին հանձնվել չգիտի Եվ մենակ չեմ, մենակ չեմ, մենակ չեմ Քայլում եմ, քայլում եմ, քայլում ու մեր մեջտեղ ողաչքերի մեջ հույսի արեգակ է փայլում Եվ տեսնում եմ երկրից տառապանքը Ստահոտ ջարողի պարկսին Համոզվում եմ կրկին, որ իմ ջանքն է Փակուղին ճեղքելու բանալին Ու ելել եմ, գտել եմ ժպիտս Եվ ձեռքերս բաց պարզելվեր Որ լույսի մարտնչող ասպետի պես Երդեմ ցնծության ժամը մեր Եվ մենակ չեմ, մենակ չեմ, մենակ չեմ Քայլում եմ, քայլում եմ, քայլում Ու մեր մեջտեղ ողաչքերի մեջ Հույսի արեգակ է փայլում
Քվեարկություն 58 ընդունվել է Շնորհակալություն
Գործընկերներ, շնորհակալ եմ այս քվեարկության եւ դիրքորոշման համար։ Ուզում եմ ընդհանրապես հասել հետեւյալը. Ծառայում եմ Հայաստանի Հանրապետության ժողովրդին, ծառայում եմ Հայաստանի Հանրապետությանը։ Շնորհակալություն։
My Step became an anthem of Armenian Velvet Revolution. The opposition leader Nikol Pashinyan's 200-kilometer-long walk across the country, along with the lyrics of the song named My Step, inspired thousands of Armenians to join the movement. Movement which will eventually force the former president and prime minister to resign, when thousands of people took to the streets of Yerevan, Armenia's capital. Blocking the traffic, honking, singing, and synchronized clapping became a political act. The unprecedented atmosphere of excitement and friendliness had enveloped everyone. Day after day, more and more people were joining the protests. Almost every citizen believed that the time has come to end injustice, corruption, and poverty.
Ընդհանրապես սեփական օրինակով ես ոչ թե ուրիշներին բերել եմ ինչ որտեղ, այլ ես գնացել եմ ինչ որտեղ եւ ուրիշներին նույնպես ընդհանրապես ասել եմ, որ իրենք նույնպես կարող են անել նույնը եւ դրա համար հատուկ հրավեր պետք չի.
The only option left for Armenian citizens was street protest, since the ruling political regimes in Armenia kept reproducing themselves without paying attention to the collective voice of its very own population. Mass protests that have plunged Armenia into a political crisis made Prime Minister Serge Sargsyan to resign. His decision to leave was unprecedented, or even surreal for any ex-Soviet leader. He said he did it to avoid bloodshed and violence. Sargsyan had served as Armenia's president for a decade. It's when on April 17, 2018, Parliament elected him as a prime minister. He had faced accusations of switching jobs and thus clinging to power. The prime minister, under a revised constitution, holds most power in the southern Caucasus nation, while the presidency is largely ceremonial.
Ոչ, իհարկե ոչ, երբ որ մենք հանդիպում էինք Մարիոթ հյուրանոցում, ես Սերժ Սարգսյանին ասացի, որ իրեն սխալ են զեկուցում, երբ ասում են, որ ինքը Հայաստանում իշխանություն ունի, ինքը այլևս Հայաստանում իշխանություն չունի, համենայն դեպս այն ծավալներով, ինչ ծավալներով պետք է իշխանությունը պահելու համար.
As thousands of people flooded the streets of the Armenian capital, paralyzing the city, former president and prime minister attempted to resolve the situation by meeting opposition leader. Unsuccessful meeting only made the situation worse, as Sargsyan mentioned that you better take lessons from the events of March 1st. March 1st was a memorable date when 11 people had died as a result of clashes between protesters and government forces. The crowds first were gathered after the presidential election on February 19, 2008, the fifth since this landlocked country in the Caucasus Mountains gained its independence from the Soviet Union in 1991. It pitted a political insider, at that time Prime Minister Serge Sargsyan, against Levon Ter-Petrosyan, who was the country's first elected president. The protests had sparked because people felt that elections were stolen from them. Many believed Sargsyan defeated Ter-Petrosyan in a presidential election marred with widespread vote fraud and violence, which was supported by Robert Kocharyan, Armenia's second and the acting president at that time. 10 years later, in April 2018, everything was different. A younger generation stepped up to protect its rights. Social media and other internet resources had completely changed the rules of the game. Mass media, especially the ones controlled by the government, were no longer trusted and considered the only source of information. Protests were all over the country. People of different ages, financial and social status were mostly against the ruling Republican Party and their leader Sargsyan. Lacking the option to tackle the situation and regain control, the ruling regime made another desperate attempt. Pashinyan, the opposition leader, was unexpectedly dragged away from the crowd and placed under custody. But unlike any other time, this time, instead of decreasing, it increased the pressure on Sargsyan to quit. The government forces had started to realize that the quantity of protesters rose to the levels never seen before. In a country that has around 3 million population, according to some estimates, over 400,000 took to the streets. Even some unarmed soldiers in the capital Yerevan joined the anti-government protests, which first erupted on April 13. Though peaceful, the tumult has threatened to destabilize Armenia, a Russian ally in a volatile region riven by its decade-long low-level conflict with Azerbaijan. Moscow, which has 2 military bases in Armenia, was closely watching events. Prior, police had detained Pashinyan, 2 other opposition leaders, and nearly 200 protesters, drawing the rebuke from the European Union. Later, police had to release them. The Prime Minister Serge Sargsyan in his statement said, quote, "I got it wrong. In a current situation, there are several solutions, but I won't choose any of them. It's not my style. I'm quitting the country's leadership and the post of Prime Minister of Armenia." He said he was bowing to protesters' demands and wanted his country to remain peaceful.
Սա մի հոգով երկու հոգով անելու բան չէ, բայց երբ որ ժողովուրդը կանգնեց իրար կողքի, դա արդեն միանշանակ հաղթանց։
Պետք էր մեր ազգին, որ հավաքվենք ու սպասենք մեր վաղվա օրվա։ Այն Հայաստանի որ վաղն է գալու, այս օրն է, էլի։
Միայն դրական էմոցիաներով հիմա լսված, թե իմ ժողովրդի, թե բոլորի հանդեպ։ Սենց սիրում եմ բոլորին։
Former Armenian Prime Minister, at that time Deputy Prime Minister Karen Karapetyan, an ally of Sargsyan from his ruling Republican Party, was named as acting Prime Minister. President Armen Sarkisyan accepted the Prime Minister's and the government's resignation. Armenia's political parties in parliament had 7 days to put up forward the name of a new Prime Minister. Sargsyan's allies remained in key positions in the government, and it was unclear whether his resignation would bring any real change.
Как вы видите, место господина Կարապետյանը занимает мой рюкзак. Կարեն Կարապետյանը պարզապես վստահ չի իր բանակցային ուժերին։ Եվ եթե մի մարդ, որը այնքան էլ վստահ չի իր բանակցային ուժերին իր հայրենիքին ներսում, ինչպես է նա պատրաստվում ընդհանրապես բանակցել Ղարաբաղի հարցի շուրջ։
Ազգային ժողովի երկխմբակցության կողմից առաջադրվեցի որպես վարչապետի թեկնածու։
Այսօր գումարվում է հատուկ նիստ քննարկելու Հայաստանի Հանրապետության վարչապետի ընտրության հարցը։
Ժողովուրդը հաղթանակած է եւ ժողովրդի հաղթանակն ու ցնծությունը պետք է արձանագրվի հենց այսօր տեղի ունենալիք քվեարկության արդյունքներով։
Շնորհավորում եմ, պարոն Փաշինյան, ձեզ մոտ ստացվեց։ Երբ որ մի քանի շաբաթ առաջ դուք փորձում էիք, գնում էիք հրապարակում, կանգնում էիք, ոչ ոք այստեղ նստածներից, բացի ձեր կուսակցության անդամներից, ձեզ չէր հավատում։
Կողմ 45 դեմ 56 որոշումը չի ընդունվել։ Մենք ձեզ հետ միասին պետք է հանդիպենք 7 օր հետո։
Ժողովուրդ ջան, խնդրում եմ հանրապետության հրապարակում սպասել։ Ես շատ շուտով կգամ այդտեղ։
On May 1st, 2018, Pashinyan failed to gain enough votes from the parliament, where Sargsyan's Republican Party still held majority of seats. though under the immense pressure from thousands of protesters on May 8th, the parliament eventually elected him as a prime minister in the second vote. The National Assembly voted 59 for, 42 against to make Pashinyan premier. Armenian President Armen Sarkisyan then signed a decree appointing Pashinyan to the position. Your victory is not that I was elected as a Prime Minister of Armenia. Your victory is that you decided who should be Prime Minister of Armenia. The protests, which toppled Sargsyan, lasted for 11 days and saw tens of thousands of protesters marching through Yerevan and other towns, blocking streets and staging sit-ins that disrupted daily life. Velvet Revolution can be considered one of its kind, since not a single person was seriously injured or killed. Open arms, non-violent approach was implemented by at that time opposition leader, now Armenia's Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan. During the weeks of unrest leading to this moment, Pashinyan had repeatedly called the protest movement a non-violent velvet revolution, comparing the demonstrations to the peaceful 1989 revolt that ended communist rule in the former Czechoslovakia. The majority Republican Party meanwhile accepted Pashinyan's election with ambivalence, bowing to the demands of the crowds, but explaining that it would become the principal opposition party.
We will consider ourselves as opposition. I think my personal opinion is that there is no way of any cooperation with new political forces in the framework of the same government. We will not be the part of this government.
The new leader of the landlocked former Soviet Republic received a much warmer embrace from Russian President Vladimir Putin. Asked about the crisis before Sargsyan's resignation, the Kremlin called Armenia an extraordinarily important country for Russia, but dismissed the idea that it might intervene, calling the crisis a domestic matter. After former president of Armenia got elected as a new prime minister, Putin had rung Sargsyan to congratulate him on becoming premier. As president, Sargsyan took Armenia, a country of about 3 million people, into a Russian-backed economic bloc and bought weapons from Moscow. Pashinyan has promised to maintain Armenia's partnership with a regional heavyweight to the north, which stations military in Armenia. Putin, who inaugurated a new term as a president himself, quickly congratulated Pashinyan.
Я хочу пожелать вам успехов на посту руководителя правительства. Надеюсь, что наши отношения будут развиваться так же поступательно, как это и было до сих пор.
The protesters' complaints were mainly domestic and focused on pervasive corruption and poverty in a country that won independence from Moscow in 1991, but has been hampered by its conflict with Azerbaijan over Nagorno-Karabakh and other issues. Though critics have also accused former head of the government Sargsyan of moving landlocked Armenia too close to Russia at the expense of better ties with the West and increased prosperity, and it was unclear whether his political demise could lead to a change in a foreign policy. Armenia's $20-25 denomination bond fell 83 cents after Sargsyan said he would resign, hitting a one-year low. Pashinyan's polemics against the powerful as a longtime newsman brought him his first glimpse of fame and even some time in prison. Now that he has taken power himself, his fellow lawmakers still view him with caution, a caution his supporters have largely exchanged for hope.
This is not really a fight in the sense of violence, but this is a fight in the sense of struggle and very strong demand for a change.
Soon after mass anti-government protests propelled Nikol Pashinyan to power, new Armenian Prime Minister launched an all-out crusade against corruption that has long eroded the ex-Soviet republic. Armenians were under no illusion about their ruling elite, but allegations that a former war hero diverted humanitarian aid to feed animals in his private zoo shocked the public. As a member of parliament who headed a small opposition party, Pashinyan built his popularity on promises to uproot the endemic graft that has long been the cause of anger against leaders.
Տիկնայք եւ պարոնայք, 2011 թվականի նոյեմբերի 9-ին Սերժ Սարգսյանը ազդարարեց Հայաստանում նոր դարաշրջանի մեկնարկը։ Մեջբերում եմ, այո, մենք կանգնած ենք նոր սկզբի առջև։ Գործարարությունը պետք է հետևողականորեն տարանջատվի պետական համակարգից եւ իշխանությունից, հայտարարեց Սերժ Սարգսյանը արդյունաբերողների եւ գործարարների միության համագումարում։ Ու հիմա այս հայտարարությունից ընդամենը 2 տարի անց մի քիչ ավել ձևավորվում է կառավարություն, որի անդամներից առնվազն 5-ը կարող են հավակնել Հայաստանի 20 ամենահարուստ մարդկանց ցուցակում տեղ զբաղեցնելու համար։
After new government came to power, investigators began looking into alleged crimes within the government, exposing and arresting multiple senior officials. They also started investigating the army, customs officials, educational and healthcare systems. Investigators were able to expose people that were considered invincible during the previous ruling regimes. Charges were made to many officials and businesses accountable for not paying taxes and illegal enrichment, ranging from thousands to hundreds of $millions. The biggest shock was in mid-June 2018 when police arrested retired Army General Manvel Grigoryan, who was also parliament member in Sargsyan's formerly ruling Republican Party. The 61-year-old was accused of large-scale misappropriation of state goods and illegal arms possession. Republicans initially denounced the arrest as unlawful and politically motivated, but after prosecutors released evidence relating to the charges, they issued a statement renouncing him as a party member. Public television aired video footage of the search in Grigoryan's country mansion, where police found a cache of weapons, a collection of luxury cars, along with the vehicles that were intended for the military but registered in the name of his relatives. Investigators claimed Grigoryan, who was in charge of delivering humanitarian aid to the army in his capacity of the head of the Military Veterans Union, used food parcels sent by school children to Armenian soldiers to feed animals in his own zoo. He has been stripped by Parliament of his immunity from prosecution as a member of Parliament and placed in pre-trial detention.
Հայաստանի Հանրապետությունում սկսվել է կոռուպցիայի դեմ անզիջում պայքար։ Եվ ես ուզում եմ մենք արձանագրենք, թե ինչ է նշանակում կոռուպցիայի դեմ պայքար։ կոռուպցիայի դեմ պայքարել նշանակում է բազմաթիվ մարդկանց ազդեցիկ, փողատեր, լծակներ եւ զենք ունեցող, զինված խմբեր ունեցող հանել այդ պայքարի դեմ, այսինքն հանել տվյալ դեպքում իմ դեմ եւ կոռուպցիայի դեմ պայքարող մարդկանց դեմ.
The crackdown has also exposed tax fraud by major companies linked to the former government officials. Since Pashinyan and his team has come to power, the amount of corruption revealed among high-level players has been unprecedented in modern Armenian history. But along with all mentioned changes, the country that has been ripped apart by the ruthless corruption, difficulties related to closed borders with neighboring Turkey and Azerbaijan needs major economic boost. The new government understands that, and in February 2019 made its official step in that direction. Armenian parliament has adopted a 5-year plan that the government proposed to recover Armenia's economy. But the plan was subject to broad criticism and passed without support of the two opposition parties in the parliament.
Եվ ես այո այսօր սկսում եմ իմ երկրորդ քայլարշավը, այն համ ֆիզիկական, համ վիրտուալ քայլարշավեր դեպի քաղաքական հեղափոխության հաղթանակ, այս մեկը քայլարշավը, էլի եւ ֆիզիկական եւ վիրտուալ դեպի տնտեսական հաղթանակ եւ դեպի տնտեսական հեղափոխություն։ Եվ ով որ քայլ ունի անելու, թողանի իր քայլը։ Ով որ ուզում անցնի այդ ճանապարհը, թող քայլի ինձ հետ։ Որովհետեւ մեր ճանապարհը անշեղելի է, մենք քայլում ենք դեպի ազատ երջանիկ եւ հզոր Հայաստան։
The plan proposed by government promises a significant decrease of the severe poverty in Armenia and a substantial decrease in unemployment by the year 2023. Smaller businesses would be exempt from taxes. Salaries in public sector would be increased. The plan has several specific targets. The GDP would increase by 5% a year. Exports would be increased to over 40% of GDP by 2024, and a solar energy would make up 10% of the country's total consumption by 2022. The plan was met by big criticism for being overly generous with words, but stingy with details. No matter what critics and skeptics might say, the country's economy, only after a year since newly elected government came to power, shows significant signs of recovery. Leaving behind all the nitty-gritty of political and economic aspects, let's proceed to the vision of bright future, since it all starts with hope, belief, and hard work, which will eventually lead to outstanding results, no matter how hard it will be to revive Armenia's economy.